Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse just released in theaters, and I thought this would be a good time to rank all the Spider-Man films in a tier list format. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. I have the Spider-Man films in this order. Tobey's trilogy we're going to start with first. Then we'll go to Andrew's duology, I think that's how I pronounce it when there's two films in a series. We have Tom Holland, of course, trilogy, and then of course Into the Spider-Verse and Across Spider-Verse. We're going to save the most recent film for last. So, Spider-Man 1, Tobey's first film. This changed in terms of modern comic book films that we know today. Now, X-Men came out soon after, and of course we had comic book movies before this, but they were very sporadic, and some were really good, like the first Batman, Michael Keaton, and others not so much. But Spider-Man 1 changed a lot of things, and I'm going to go with A. It is a great first film, still holds up, maybe not everything, but I think in terms of what they accomplished, it's insane. Because I remember watching the 90s animated series of Spider-Man and X-Men, and seeing this film and seeing the first X-Men film blew my mind. I remember seeing this film for the first time and I couldn't believe what they accomplished. I actually believed it. I actually believed this is Spider-Man. You know, and Tobey was obviously great. And it's a great first film, great introduction, and it changes what we think of in terms of comic book movies today. And if this wasn't successful and that first X-Men film wasn't successful, I don't think we would be where we are today in terms of comic book movies pretty much coming out every year and having multiple per year from different studios. So, give props to the first film, of course. Spider-Man 2, I mean, it's no question. It's an S tier. I mean, this film still, to me, is one of the best comic book movies ever made. It still holds up. Phenomenal second film, because when it comes to sequels, a lot of the times, the sequels are never as good as the first film. Sometimes that's not the case. In this case, it's better than the first film, in my opinion. It's insane the level of emotional things and the actual improvement of the action sequences in some of the major things that occur in this film. It's insane what they pulled off here. And so, you got to get props. Sam Raimi did a phenomenal job here with taking what worked in the first Spider-Man film and elevating it. And then, of course, I believe it was Spider-Man 2 is the one that had the Doctor Strange Easter egg that, of course, referred to later, finally down the road, he actually had to direct a Doctor Strange film. I think it was in the second film. But anyways, good stuff. Good stuff. I still get excited whenever I'm thinking, oh, I should watch that film again, because it's so good. It's so good. Spider-Man 3. At first, when I first saw this film, I would probably have given it an A when I first saw it in theaters. I'm going to be generous. Can't even speak today. Can't even speak today. Literally, it's a Monday. It is a Monday. I'm going to go with a B. Some may say that's too high. I'm going B because I think, besides the dance, the transformation of Tobey with the symbiote suit, with Peter changing, I think really was an interesting, way they went about it, and it kind of fits with some of the iterations in the comics in terms of Peter being taken over by the symbiote suit. The dance, of course, iconic for many different reasons, but of course, at the time, people thought that was just really ridiculous, and of course, people just make fun of it now, or they just, they embrace it as just being a part of it. But the Sandman stuff was really well done, and I wish Venom looked better. But other than that, the black suit, the black symbiote suit, Spider-Man, is awesome. It looks so cool in this fucking poster. It's still badass. It's still really cool. But it kind of brings it down, because I think that they could have got a better Eddie, and I think Venom could have looked better, because they already had the exact, perfect look of Venom, of course, in the 90s animated series from Spider-Man, and of course, in the comics. The route they went, no, it just doesn't work. But the Sandman stuff elevates it to me in terms of being a B. So we're going to go with that. The Amazing Spider-Man, the first Andrew film, we're going to go with A on this. We're going to go A on this. It is a great first film. It's unfortunate what happened to Spider-Man 2, but in terms of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But The Amazing Spider-Man, I think Andrew did a great job of bringing forth a little bit of a different Peter. And it's kind of strange because they wanted to do Spider-Man 4, and then things just fell apart. So I think Andrew really showed how much he really cared about this character, and I think it's a great, great film. It has some great moments, and I really wish that we could have maybe seen more and followed this kind of tone, because unfortunately Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, is a C for me. It's going to be the lowest film on here, because the first film I think really worked in terms of an introduction, of course, in Gwen Stacy, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I felt like they were just trying to rush too many things and do too many things at once, because they were trying to set up so many things. Like, literally, Sony was jumping the gun. Sony was like, okay, so The Amazing Spider-Man, okay, okay, the second film, we're gonna do this, we're gonna set up all this, because they had plans for The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4, they had an idea for Sinister 6, they had other ideas that they wanted to do in terms of this continuity of Andrew Garfield's, continuity, and that really hurt and bogged down The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because they tried to just cram so much stuff into it instead of trying to tell a complete story. From, at least in my opinion, in the second film, they bogged it down with too much setup for other stuff, which the MCU has been known to do that at times too, so it's not like just a Sony problem. But thankfully, it seems Sony's kind of learning with Into the Spider-Verse stuff. We'll get to that later. But I'm going to stick with the first film being an A, and the lowest one on here is going to be the C. So I actually had this in wrong order. Homecoming was the poster they're using is a terrible Homecoming poster, but in my personal opinion, I think Homecoming is an A. I think it's kind of interesting how all their first films are in the A category, and that's not intentional. That's just how I feel. I think Tom's first film, Homecoming, I think it was really interesting in terms of an MCU, because we already saw him in Civil War, and then seeing this first film iteration of the character and having a full story. Of course, we had Robert Downey Jr. a little bit in the film. Michael Keaton as Vulture is probably the standout besides Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland did a great job of carrying over what worked in Civil War from the little bit we saw him, and really making that humor work. And of course, Ned and MJ really worked in the film. Obviously, it's all introduction stuff, but that poster's terrible. It's a nightmare. But there were some great moments in it, and I think it was a great foundation. Now, there are people out there there are people that hate the MCU Spider-Man because of certain things they were doing in terms of, Peter's not really doing his own stuff, and he's just kind of taking what, basically what Stark is giving him. And I get that criticism, but I mean, we've had the other iterations of Peter Parker from the Sony side, and so when Marvel was working with the character, they wanted to do something different. They wanted, and if that didn't work for you, that's completely fine. I'm not here to argue and say that it didn't. But I'm gonna go with A. Now, Spider-Man: Far From Home, I'm gonna give it a B. It is a step down in my opinion. It's still pretty solid, but I didn't really connect with it as much as Homecoming. I kind of wish Far From Home was better. I think the Mysterio twist and everything, and how they handled the Mysterio arc, I think was pretty good. Jake Gyllenhaal did a pretty good job. I'm actually surprised he was in this movie. I'm actually surprised he was in the MCU and the way he was. But Far From Home, it's solid, but it definitely isn't on the level of the first film or some of the other Spider-Man films, obviously, as you can tell here. But yeah, Far From Home, I think, just could have been better overall. And I'm thankfully, from my opinion, they learned from No Way Home. And I'm going to give No Way Home an S tier. Some may say that that's probably too high, because I know that people, when they're ranking Spider-Man films, they rank it a little lower. They may put like an A tier or something, or when they're like ranking like Letterboxd, where you have it in order from like 1 to whatever number. But for me, No Way Home is to me an S tier. That doesn't mean it's a perfect film, but to me it is one of the best Spider-Man films ever, because how they were able to blend together multiple villains from different Spider-Man eras from the Sony side of things, and then also bringing, of course, Andrew and Tobey and Tom all together, and them actually having a lot of screen time together. I think it really worked, and seeing all them working together, and it's really just one of those things that I just wish I can go back and watch the film for the first time again, because just the whole film changing with Tobey and Andrew coming through, talking to Tom, and all three Peters just having that connection. I mean, it's to me, it's so good. And yeah, it's definitely one of the best Spider-Man films ever made, and I'm so happy that they actually pulled it off. And even though we all knew they were in the film, we all knew Tobey and Andrew were in the film, I'm kind of glad they also didn't show them in the trailers. They wanted to so bad, but it's okay. Everybody pretty much knew they were in it, but good stuff. Into the Spider-Verse and Across Spider-Verse. I'm just going to jump the gun here. We're just going to put these here. Now, I know some people tier list when they do tier list S tier, they put the very top S tier in front of all the other S tiers, so they have it in like that kind of order. For me, it's like I'm just putting them up there. I could go into that further detail, but that would just require a lot of extra thinking. But Into the Spider-Verse and Across Spider-Verse are both S tier films. If I was to do that whole ranking thing, yeah, I think Across Spider-Verse would be above Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's better than Into the Spider-Verse, but they're both S tier films to me. Into the Spider-Verse is a unique animated styled film, great story. I mean, the animation Into the Spider-Verse blew people's minds, and Across Spider-Verse even elevates that even further, because I've been saying Into the Spider-Verse walked so Across Spider-Verse could run and soar, because Into the Spider-Verse set the foundation, and it was so good. It wasn't good, it wasn't great, it was fantastic. And then Across Spider-Verse comes in and goes, yeah, our first film was fantastic, but we're going to freaking beat it. And they did on multiple levels. The Miles story, I mean, it's so crazy what they've been able to accomplish, because Into the Spider-Verse wasn't, like, it made, I think, a little under 400 million worldwide. And Across Spider-Verse from this morning's numbers, I think it's going to end up making over 100 million opening weekend domestic alone. It's going to surpass Into the Spider-Verse's box office, and it deserves it. Into the Spider-Verse deserved more money. It's insane what Sony's able to pull off with all these spider characters, and the Across Spider-Verse just even quadruple, even more, add spider characters into the mix. And I think overall Spider-Man's had a great run in terms of films. Of course, we have other stuff. We have Spider-Man 4 in development. Of course, we know they're doing Beyond the Spider-Verse. I think they're even developing even more Spider-Man stuff. I think they even announced they're doing Miles Morales live action. At least that's what they were wanting to do. When the writer's strike is over, they want to continue down that path. Spider-Man's going to be in the theatrical run for quite some time. There's not going to be a lull in Spider-Man films, I don't think. But so the final ranking, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man No Way Home, Into the Spider-Verse, Across Spider-Verse, all S-tier films, phenomenal films. They still hold up. They're amazing in their own way. It's good shit. A-tier, Spider-Man, Tobey's first film, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man Homecoming. B is Spider-Man 3 and Far From Home, Tom's second film. And of course, Amazing Spider-Man 2 rounds out as C-tier. I know there's other people that done tier videos where they have the Venom films. I don't know where I would put them personally. Maybe Venom 1 might be like a B. Venom Let There Be Carnage might be a B or C, because it's not as good as Venom the first film, but overall it's fun, but still. But this is where I rank them currently right now. I think this is pretty solid. I really enjoy these films overall, more than others, but I mean, overall Spider-Man's track record has been pretty damn good. That's a good thing. So anyways, that's the video. I'm curious to know you guys, how would you rank the Spider-Man films in the tier list? I'll actually link this in the description if you guys want to go do it yourself, and how you would rank the films. I'm curious to know. But anyways, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.